certainly won't make it through the entire speech without crying. I haven't made it 30 seconds. One of the many lessons my grandpa taught me is that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional. And that was possibly the biggest conundrum about Bill Long, is that he was so tough. He was such a man's man. He rode a Harley. He built things with his hands. He worked hard. Everything he had, he built from the ground up. He was strong. He was handsome. He provided for his family. And he was wise. But despite all of that, he wasn't afraid to love. And he was a man that, despite the burly figure, was incredibly soft on the inside and incredibly caring. I'm repeating what Tricia said and what Jessica said, but he was hands down the most selfless, thoughtful, caring, and loving human being that I've ever met. I remember one specific fishing trip. Some of my favorite memories as a kid were fishing with my father, my grandfather, and my great uncle Marshall. Some of the pictures are out in the hallway. But on this specific trip, it was back when disposable cameras were a thing and were still relevant. Like Jessica mentioned, I remember riding in the big blue Ford truck. As a kid, it was always the coolest truck in the world, and another thing that I just looked up to my grandfather for. And on the ride home, which always seemed so long from Ohio to Kentucky, I found a disposable camera, and I took a bunch of pretend pictures, and I was playing with it and just taking pictures inside the truck. Thought nothing of it. At the end of the day, said goodbye to Grandpa, goodbye to Grumps. Got big, scruffy, painful kisses that we all miss so much. And then a few days later, because at this time, pictures took a while to develop, the next time Grumps visited, he came to my house with a Walgreens pack that he had developed from the trip. Turns out that I didn't realize it, but I did know how to work the camera, and I had actually taken a bunch of pictures inside the truck. Most of the pictures were of nothing. I remember one specific picture was of a Coke can, and several of the pictures were of Grandpa's Harley calendar. I say quotations because I wasn't looking at the Harley. And while this is hopefully a funny story to lighten the mood, it says a lot about my grandfather. He could have been, and he should have been mad at me. In fact, I ruined all the pictures, but he didn't. Instead, he developed every single one. He paid to have those pictures developed, and he gave those to me. He was always giving. And afterwards, we laughed about it, and now to this day, it's just one of those earliest, fondest memories. He was never mad at us. He cared for us, and he always showed us grace. What could have been a negative, you really turned around, and it just shows who he was. He was the type of man that, even though he grew up with nothing and he worked for everything that he had, he was also the person that would give you anything he needed. He has quite literally given me the shirt off his back because I told him I liked it. He'll stop right there and take it off and say it's yours now. If you ever needed anything, by God, he would find it at a yard sale and he would have it for you as soon as you needed it. He never forgot a face. He never forgot a name. He never even forgot a birthday. He hardly ever missed a t-ball game. Despite having 5 brothers, 5 sisters, 3 of his own kids, 11 grandkids, and 18 great-grandchildren. It's a lot of names to remember. All of us here struggle to do it, and yet never missed a single birthday. He cared so deeply about everyone he met, and it was impossible not to love him back. He loved his family more than anything in this world. Tricia mentioned that he was a man of God, and a man who loved the Lord. And in more ways than one, Bill Long lived his life very similar to Jesus. Bill was even a carpenter. The similarities are there. The man truly lived in a way that the Bible would tell you to do so. Grumps taught me a lot about what it means to be a man. He taught me about life in general. to love a little more, to give a little more, to pray a little more, and to appreciate what you have. I wanted to share one last story. Grandpa passed away last Wednesday, and the last time I visited Mary, we just kind of talked about, kind of those final moments. And I don't really believe in coincidences, but Mary's sister came to visit when Grandpa had passed, and to me, I truly believe that, that was kind of his final hurrah, his final way to show. But he did not want Mary to be alone, and no matter how hard he was hurting, he held on until that moment, because he was selfless. He put everybody ahead of him, especially family. And so he waited until he knew that Mary was in good arms, and then he went peacefully the way that he wanted to on the hillside where he had established everything he had worked for. As we prepare for the family reunion this year, coming up this weekend, I find joy in knowing that my grandfather is a man of God, and he is celebrating a much bigger and more marvelous reunion. He is finally pain-free. He is finally home with the rest of his family, with his brothers, with his sisters, and many of his friends who have passed before us. And while Grumps is no longer here with us in physical body, and he won't be there to say hello, I find joy and I find comfort in knowing that he knew the only way he could be with us this year is if he was looking over us.